hard to imagine there were positives in a lopsided loss as it was, but there were. The defensive line did a nice job of getting pressure on the quarterback, 2 sacks on the night. Also numerous pressures in a group that had the fewest sacks in the conference. Offensive line and the people that protected in the game, 0 sacks and a number of opportunities that we threw the ball. I think when you look at it, 73 points, it's hard to imagine that the first quarter was a shutout. First time in a long time for them that they had been shut out in the first quarter. And then midway through the second quarter, it's 14-7 game. Also, offensively, we've been working hard to eliminate turnovers. We had 1 in the ball game that came on the opening drive after a 15-play, 7-minute drive. That was our only turnover in the game. And usually a score that gets out of hand, as lopsided as that was, there's many turnovers, numerous turnovers in the game. Things that we didn't do well. Houston's been a big play offense all year. They continued that Thursday night. Their tailback Sims had an incredible first half with his runs, screens, and his rushing yardage there. He wound up, 10 carries for 207 yards. We didn't contain him. Their quarterback, we knew he was an outstanding player. He had another great night against us. And in the second half, their receivers, one big play after another. When you break it down, you look at the film, it wasn't a lack of effort on our part. We were in some key one-on-one matchups with them in all 3 phases, from the punt game to offense to defense, and we didn't win those one-on-one matchups. Sometimes in the second half defensively, we had 2-on-1 matchups, and credit their receivers, credit their quarterback. They went up and made some outstanding plays. So that is a recap of the game. Any questions or comments concerning Houston? Good. We'll move forward. Rice this week. They lost their bowl hopes last week, 3-7 record. They lost to Northwestern, as you know, 26-6. They played a tough non-conference schedule. When you look at some of their opponents, Texas, Baylor, big upset of Purdue, and Northwestern. They have played, much like East Carolina, a tough non-conference. Offensively, they've been some run, some pass. They've mixed it up this year. They have got some mileage out of the Wildcat, or however you would term that personnel, with their running back, number 18, Turner Peterson. He played extremely well against Houston. He had over 100 yards rushing in that game. The receiver, Vance McDonald on offense, makes plays for them. Defensively, they're what we term an 8-man front. They crowd the line of scrimmage. Scott Solomon, who set out last year, is a very dominating player up front for them. He's 4th in the conference sacks and 7th in the conference tackle for loss. Number 34, their linebacker, leads them in overall tackles, 5th in the conference. Very solid in special teams with place kicker, 2nd in the conference in field goal, and their punter high atop the stats conference-wise. Questions on Rice?
It seems like Tulane always gets this Rice game, and you guys are very similar in a lot of ways. Oftentimes the bowl hopes are kind of, diminished at this point, and it always seems to be a tight game. If you could just sort of comment on the, the specific matchup year to year with Rice.
Well, with the exception of the one great year Rice had, they had 3 offensive players that were truly outstanding, with quarterback and slot receiver and receiver. Where they won the conference and went to the bowl games. We have been, and I think when you look at the recruiting, we recruited a number of the same players. Houston is a hotbed for us in recruiting. Their home city, so we recruited a number of the same players. Our academic standards are very much in order there. And when you look at the schedules, we play them usually late in the year. For bowl games, for postseason play, usually haven't been intact for us, and with the exception of their outstanding year, haven't been intact for them. So those are the similarities, and we're similar athletically. I call it the mirror effect. When I watch them stretch and us stretch, it's like looking in the mirror. They have similar athletes to us, and I'm not based on salaries to compare athletic budgets, but I would think that they'd be along the same lines. So those are some similarities.
Coach, when you're going through a season where you struggled, you have to obviously pick out individual performances and guys that have excelled. Could you talk about Trent Mackey and how well he's played this year, and then Robert Kelly?
Sure. Trent Mackey, he's brought it every day, be it practice or game day. Trent, we spoke about him a number of times. He's an outstanding competitor. He runs on every special team. Again, this week he's going to run our goal line package and play fullback for us. But he just has a big heart. I know it's an often overused statement in the sports world, but he loves the game. He loves to compete. And I compared him to the Rice linebacker at 5'10", and some of the players chuckled and said, Trent's not 5'10". I said, well, I'm going to give him 5'10". But no matter his size, he does bring it in practice every day with the same enthusiasm, the same emotion, the same work ethic, and he brings it every day to the game field.
How about Robert Kelly?
Robert Kelly,
freshman.
He's a freshman, and we've had a large number of kickoff returns this year, and he hasn't shied away from it any time. He is a very tough individual on the football field. He wants the ball. He's just like any tailback. He wants more carries, more touches in the receiving game. But every time that kickoff team return goes on the field, he thinks it's an opportunity for him to score, and that's how he's approached it. And he's took a number of hard legs throughout the season, had a number of opportunities against Houston Thursday night, unfortunately, and every time he was first one in the huddle and was ready to go. Robert's got a bright future ahead of him. With an off season, with a summer conditioning program, his potential hasn't even been touched. And being a true freshman straight out of high school ranks, doing what he's doing now for us, the sky's the limit for him.
Sorry, will it take players like Kelly and young players like that caliber to get this program to where it needs to be successful?
Certainly, not only this program won, but every program. The kind of caliber that Robert is, some of our other younger players, even our receiving corps. When you look at Justin Shackelford, Brendan LeBeau, Xavier Rush, those players are getting seasoning as we speak right now. And down the road, they'll make somebody else's scouting report before they play on that week as a key player, as someone that they have to stop. Just like Edwards and Carrier for Houston, I'm not saying they'll have the stats. Not very many do have the stats, but they will be an impact player down the road for the Tulane program.
This season has been very tumultuous in a lot of different ways. Have the off-the-field distractions, have they lessened? Have they increased with all this? There's so much fan focus on the coaching search and all this. How much of that is penetrating the team itself? In other words, are there more distractions now, or were there right after Toledo resigned?
Well, Tammy, there's the same concerns now. A few people doing their jobs that help to create those distractions because you want answers. Our young men are no different than their parents or us as a coaching staff. We look to see who's going to be next. We listen to the general public. We listen to people who have an opinion or who may have some insight on what's going on. I think things have settled since the first week. Obviously, it couldn't be as hectic as the first week, but as the season's gone on, now we're going into week 5. We have settled in as a coaching staff, as players, into a practice routine. As far as the off-the-field circumstances, talk with them, talk with the staff. We have no control over that. That's going to happen. That's going to take place. Hopefully in 2 weeks when the season concludes, shortly thereafter, we'll get some more information. We'll get some closure, if you will. And then the players, the coaches, families, we'll move forward. And we chose the profession. We know the ups, we know the downs, and we'll face that in a couple of weeks.
Coach, I wanted you to comment on Darkwah's progress. I know he's faced some injuries in his first couple of years, but he had a nice run, and then he had the touchdown run in the first half and the second quarter.
He sure did. And Orleans, when you talk about Robert Kelly, you talk about Trent Mackey, he's another one that you can talk about as just a competitor. He loves to compete, and in that running back position, I think when you look at him, I touched a couple weeks ago on Matt Forte at 40 carries a game, seeing how beat up, what a physical toll this game takes on their body. But Orleans just keeps going. He took the shot a couple of weeks ago in East Carolina. You were fortunate to be there. Didn't know if he'd get up, and not only did he get up, he shook it off on the sidelines, and a couple of plays later, he was trotting back on the field. So he is a tough, physically tough individual, tough-minded individual. He was slowed. He had a toe injury, and he was slowed in the offseason. He was slowed in preseason camp. And as you've seen that heal over the course of the season, he has increased with his carries. After contact, his yardage there has increased. So Orleans is short of 1,000 yards in a season where some of the goals are out of reach. Certainly from an offensive line standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, some individual goals we could share in that, and helping Orleans to achieve that 1,000-yard rushing mark.
Is there any scenario that you see yourself here under the new regime? And when the new coach comes in, what advice would you give to the coach?
Ed, those are great questions, and it's not something that I think at this time is the time and place to address it, not with 2 games remaining in the season, not for being in a standpoint of leadership with the team. As far as my involvement at Tulane, from the beginning, this has been a great place. I spent 5 years here. My wife is very active in the Destrehan community, and it's certainly a place that I would like to stay at. But again, those situations, those decisions will be in other people's hands, and they'll be in other people's control. So your questions are good, and it's just at this time, I don't think it's the right time to address that.
Just how much would a win over Rice be just to prove to the players that there is a tangible benefit to continuing to work hard through all the distractions?
Well, a win over Rice, that's what we work for, and not just Rice, but the previous weeks that we've been playing. But anytime you put the amount of work, you put the time in from the staff or from players, you're going to see some benefits. You're going to see some gains from that. Now, on the flip side of that, they have the same amount of scholarships on their side. They put the same time, they put the same work in. So Saturday, all across the nation, when 2 teams are competing and playing against each other, both sides feel an urge to win. But with everything that's happened this year, with the changes, with the ups, with the downs, with the different emotions, certainly a win Saturday in Houston would be a great thing for the team and for the staff. And it would be an emotional time for all of us.
This is probably the last time I want us to talk to you. Can you just kind of break down what the biggest challenges of taking over as an interim coach? I mean, it's not a situation you see very often in college, particularly. To come in, you now coach 5 games, I guess, as an interim. What things did you kind of expect, and what things kind of crept up on you that you challenges you didn't quite realize?
Well, the interim, from that Tuesday that Rick asked me, the things went through my mind about having been an interim before. The meeting with the players, the meeting with the coaches, the dealing with the academic department, dealing with equipment, dealing with training room, dealing with matters across campus, dealing with the athletic director and president. I knew what that entailed. As far as being strenuous in the worst week, it's always the first week. It's the time when change was announced. It's a time when not only players but coaches and everyone in the Tulane family is dealing with that. And it's a situation where I knew coming in, we had goals in place, we had team building in place, we were a family, but I knew it was a time that I felt like we had to hold the team together, both as their interim head coach and assistant coaches. And went through a series of what I would term fall camp, August team building, just to put it back in, to be the family that we were, but to reinforce what had happened and become even a closer group. So your question, what was the toughest time? Certainly the first 48 or 72 hours, with the first 24 being the most difficult. Picking what was going to be said to the players, what was going to be presented to the fan base and to the Tulane public, and those were things that had thought through and were able to present to the team. And as coaches, whether you win or lose, there's no more that comes into it. But just seeing the team respond, seeing the staff respond, and still being competitive, still giving the effort, and not having major distractions that you pick up the newspaper today or you guys cover that you see across the country. Things that to do differently. I don't know if this is the time to reflect on that. I think once the season's over, have a meeting with the athletic director and everyone involved in the program, those when the pros and cons will come out. Those will be, well, you could have done this differently, or you did this well. I think that's when the overall evaluation will be assessed, not only as a staff, but with the team, with the players. I don't know if I answered your question.
I got an easier one.
Okay.
Cairo is punting a little bit.
He is.
Yeah, tell me when and why and what's
Well, I wish he'd punt a little more, but when we punted at Houston, well, backing up, when we were having some punt issues and protection, we had to change some personnel, we had to change some schemes. And one of the things that we wanted to do was move the pocket, and we didn't reinvent the wheel. The roll punt has been in college football, and Cairo is natural at rolling out of the pocket and playing the football. He did a nice job Thursday night against Houston, and we'll have other opportunities for the remainder of the last two games.
He's healthy enough. I know that he had a little bit of wear and tear on his leg earlier.
He did have some wear on him. We took him off the place kicking duties, but I don't know what percentage to give you. He's back to full speed or very close to full speed, and that now we could place kick him if we needed to. Ryan has grown accustomed and is doing a good job in that role, and if we needed to, Cairo could kick off, and he certainly, as you saw Thursday night, with the way he punted the ball both Thursday night and the previous week, he's able to do that and give us an advantage in the punt team.
Entering these final 2 weeks as a staff, some of you guys have been here together for a very long time.
Yeah.
What's the feeling around the staff? Is it really just business as usual, or is it, kind of take advantage of the last 2 weeks that you guys know that you'll all be together and close as a staff?
Well, a lot of us have been together, like you said, for 5 years. This group, it's a great group of men. It's become a close group through the good times and not so times through the program. You become that. You can't spend 12, 14 hours a day and not feel some attachment and get close to your working group. The last 2 weeks, they're approaching as professionals. We all have a contract. We all signed on the contract. We got into the game to make a difference in a young man's life. And I know that sounds different for you, but that's why we chose this profession. So, the last 2 weeks, and not only these last 6 weeks, but the 5 years that we've been together, and some of us only 1 or 2, we'll continue to do that and make a difference in their life. And whether we're here or whether we go on, which all of us want to stay in the profession and keep working, we'll do that at another goal, because that's just why we got into it, and that's what we did.
More questions? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
That's good.
Thank you.